if you live in Michigan, like I do, you've been and you we've had this medical marijuana law for quite some time now, good 10 years almost, um, and it seems to be doing okay. I really don't hear too many complaints. I don't see too many problems with it. Um, you know, everybody that wants to participate in it seems to have no problem doing so. There's a few situations where the cops are getting out of line, like Oakland County busting dispensaries still and stuff. But by and large, it seems to be a pretty good program. It hasn't really affected too much. It has brought down the cost of marijuana considerably. I would say pre 2008 prices to now, about cut in half for good weed. So that's a good thing. Patients can afford medicine now. Instead, before medical marijuana wasn't really a thing, people weren't even thinking of it like that. It was just good dank weed, and it was like 350 to 400 as an ounce. You can get an ounce nowadays for about 150 to 200, maybe 250 at the most. So I don't know. Let's see what do we got going on. I remember I did a story or two or three about these new laws that was passed in Lansing last year, and Governor Snyder signed it. Now these laws were sitting around in committee for a long time, suspiciously long, and it doesn't seem like they were really hashing out the law too much. I mean, if they were, they weren't telling anybody out here what they were doing. But they had all these things, and it just started out as, hey, we need to do something about medibles and concentrates and dispensaries. Those three issues were the ones on the only topic of discussion when these new public acts that are in Michigan, when those went into committee, that was it. That was the only things that were at issue. Now all of a sudden we have all kinds of other things that come out of it that apparently they thought were at issue as well, like marijuana needing to be tested at labs. I guess in the last year or two, the idea that medical marijuana might have some mold or some pesticides in it has caused people to fucking freak the fuck out. And they specifically have written into laws in every single state that has medical marijuana that your marijuana has to go to a lab to get tested for purity. Now, I don't have a super big problem with this, but I just, it's just one of those things. And then you got this safe transport shit, whatever the fuck that is. That's just somebody else getting in on this industry where they didn't need to be there before. I mean, you literally have somebody that's going to be an unneeded middleman coming to pick up your weed after you grow it at your grow facility. They come and pick it up, and then they take it to the place where you're going to test it or sell it or both. Seems a little ridiculous. Seems a little ridiculous. What else did they do to it? Well, they talk about making it so you have a municipality and they have to have the rules for their municipality drawn up by a certain deadline, and then after that, people are allowed to put in for licenses. So you have to have your license fee for the application figured out, and once someone gets a license approved or whatever, then you have the license actual yearly registration fee, I guess you would call that one. Well, we've seen what Lansing did. Lansing went ahead and set $100,000 if you want to open a dispensary. That's your yearly fee. I can't remember what the application fees were. They were pretty high, and yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked here. Let's look at medical marijuana by the numbers real quick. And then we're going to talk about how Michigan's government, which if you pay attention to the regular reporting, there was some kind of report that came out about a year or two ago that was talking about it was rating different state governments as being, whether or not they were corrupt or how corrupt they were. And Michigan ranked as one of the top corrupt most governments in the United States as far as state governments go. The number one. Since I've seen that, I've seen it also ranked in the top five in other places, but mostly number one or two. And I mean, there's a bunch of different factors that go into this, like transparency is a big one. Um, the amount of time that you have to wait, the cooling off period, they call it, between when you stop actually being a public servant to when you can become a lobbyist. Or another one would be from the time you were lobbying for a particular industry or whatever, and then after you were done being a lobbyist, you became a major shareholder or CEO or something like to that effect of the same thing that you were regulating. So it takes a lot of things into consideration and it weighs them in. Michigan's bad. Michigan always comes up bad. But one of the things I hate the most about Michigan's is that the governor don't even have any, freedom of information request worries. Like, there's just no finding out. Like, we've been trying to get to look at Governor Snyder's emails for 2 years now, and they're still in court trying to haggle out a way to where we could do that. But there's just no way it's going to happen. I mean, if there wasn't nothing damning in there, then he should just churn the fucking things over. But that's not going to happen either. So you got a governor, the executive branch, that don't even have to let you know anything. You can't. Everything they do can be in secret. You don't have any cooling off period for lobbyists and people that were in the government. It's a revolving door, and there's no slowing it down. Michigan's got the worst fucking corrupt system in place. And once you got a system like that in place, and it's fully loaded with Republicans, you better believe that there's some serious corruption going on. And this applies to everything. This isn't just about this new medical marijuana law. This is anything where the government regulates a business. And in Michigan, it's all really friendly to the business, not really friendly to the individual. Either the consumer gets the shaft, or the residents of the state get the shaft, or maybe just general shaftage going on for people that would like to participate in a business but can't because of the regulations or the fees, the application fees, or there's somebody in a committee somewhere that has to approve you, and just so many ways it can be corrupt. Contractors getting no bid contracts without even knowing that the contract goes up, stuff like that. So anyway, I'm gonna try to get through this. So we got a couple of different articles that talk about what's going on in Michigan right now. In medical marijuana terms, we have 244,125 registered medical marijuana patients. Caregivers, 40,702. Estimated sales with new medical marijuana regulations, $711 million. Estimated tax revenue with new law, $21 million. Number of plants for each class of medical marijuana growers. You got one up to 500, one up to 1,000, and one up to 1,500. It sounds like you're all right at the same level between 5 and 1,500. When I see grows in other places, I see them talking about, up to 2,500. You got your 500 and then up to 2,500 and then up to 10,000. I mean, you're talking about the same size facility practically could house a 500 plant grow operation and a 1,500 plant grow operation. I mean, if I'm thinking of 5 plants or 15 plants, definitely. Just depends on how big you grow the plants. Product yield for a single marijuana plant, depending on the strain, 2 ounces to 2 pounds. Now, that's all, just depending on way more than just the strain if you're talking about 2 pounds. So the price, $8 to $20 a gram, which would translate in a range of $448 to $18,140. Now, I like what they did there. They took the low price gram and applied that to if you're just buying, a little bit. And then they take the $20 a gram and they put that on if you're buying pounds, because there's no way that 2 pounds of weed is going to cost $18,000. Come on. I mean, even at 20 a gram, for real. So I don't know, maybe there. I'm not trying to do the math right now, but who even cares about their shitty math? These estimates don't even sound correct, but whatever. So what is this all about? What do I got you here for today, guys? Well, I got you here today to show you that basically this is what it looks like in detail when the government gives the medical marijuana, and in some cases recreational, and this is basically the blueprint of how Michigan's going to do it with recreational as well. Unless one of the ballot initiatives wins the day, and even the ballot initiatives kind of look like they're the Michigan, the new public acts as they are now, the new laws that the government in Michigan passed last year to regulate the medical marijuana industry, they call it. And they're really just trying to make money off of medical marijuana. And it's not just the taxes they want to make money off of it. They want to make all the money off of it. And the people doing it, some of the people doing it are the same people that before medical marijuana came along, they were against medical marijuana. And they wanted to lock you up for it. They had all the lobbies and all the money going to fight legalizing marijuana. And now they're the people that want to sell you the marijuana. Matter of fact, when My Legalize was launching their petition for the 2016 election cycle, these people were involved in a ballot initiative of their own. And they were the name of them they're called Michigan Responsible. I don't know, it's down here. Responsible Michigan or something like that. Whatever, it's a Republican group. I'll get to it eventually, but they tried their petition drive, and they tried to be hush-hush about what was actually in the petition. But when people found out that they were trying to give the whole industry to just 10 people, it fell through. Nobody was going to even sign their petition, let alone if their petition made it, that they were going to actually get on the ballot, because you would have to get more. You'd have to get the most. Like they had some kind of thing like whoever had the most signatures for their petition drive would be on the ballot. Or if they all got on the ballot, whoever got the most votes was the one that they went with. So I'm going to read a couple articles and maybe comment on them. Medical pot laws ignite Lansing feeding frenzy. The medical marijuana industry is poised for explosive growth in Michigan. New laws seeking to regulate, tax, and legitimize lucrative business have unleashed a torrent of cash at Lansing decision-makers, sending dozens of lobbyists, lawmakers, legislative staffers, and business owners scrambling for a piece of the billion-dollar enterprise. All the jockeying is taking place under Michigan's weakest-in-the-nation laws, outlining government ethics, like I said earlier, transparency, and conflicts of interest. And all this is happening while Lansing awaits Governor Snyder's appointment of a 5-member board that will ultimately oversee licensing of the industry, raising questions about who will truly benefit from bringing pot to the mainstream. The stakes are high. While medical marijuana revenue in Michigan are estimated at more than $700 million if full legalization of marijuana happens, as it has in 8 other states, the revenues could be enormous. ArcView Market Research, a California-based company that tracks the marijuana industry, reported $6.8 billion nationally in legal marijuana sales, both recreational and medicinal, in 2016, and projects the market to grow to $21.6 billion by 2021. As you can see, the states that are this color are the ones that have the medical and recreational marijuana, the green, and then you have I don't know if that's orange or peach. No, that's just the medical marijuana states. All of them have varying medical marijuana rules and laws, and depending on where you're at, what you can do, whether or not you can even smoke marijuana or not. Then you got 16 states who have the low THC marijuana, which is basically no THC and all CBD. We call that the compassion states because they at least say, hey, you know what? All bullshit aside, people really need this CBD. Kids are having seizures. There's cancer patients, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have these gray states. They're getting fewer and farther between, but they're there, and they don't have anything except for handcuffs for you. All the types of numbers, the lobbying efforts in Lansing have exploded. So a Free Press investigation, the Detroit Free Press, unearthed this bevy of just disgusting, swampy bullshit. So the chiefs of staff of the House and Senate committees developing the medical marijuana legislation both quit their jobs in the past 2 years to become lobbyists for the medical marijuana industry. And why not? Pays a lot better. Former House Speaker Rick Johnson, a lobbyist since 2005, worked on the medical marijuana legislation, though he said he had no paying client, and has now been nominated to be on the 5-member board that will issue lucrative medical marijuana licenses. I don't suppose he's met anybody along the way that might benefit from that. He's also negotiating the sale of his stake in a lobbying firm, obviously the one he worked at, Dodak Johnson and Associates, to a lobbyist for the medical marijuana industry, raising concerns about whether industry lobbyists could seek to curry favor with Johnson through the price paid. Yeah, like this consulting firm was worth about $0 before he was like, hey, I'm about to be on this 5-member commission. It's going to make some decisions. It might affect something that you do. This is exactly the kind of corrupt bullshit we're talking about, man. Since 2015, medical marijuana interests have spent more than $336,000 lobbying state lawmakers and officials, and have paid more than $50,000 into campaign funds state lawmakers control. The actual numbers are higher, but can't be calculated from public records because state law does not require multi-client lobbying firms, including some of whose client lists include medical marijuana players, according to the review by the Free Press, to identify how much of their total lobbying effort is spent on a specific issue, such as medical marijuana. While campaign fund donations must be publicly reported, lawmakers don't have to disclose donations businesses make to federal nonprofit funds they control, known as social welfare organizations. You know, they always give these things such nice names, and it makes it sound like it's actually helping people or doing something for the greater good. When really, it's just a way to hide your donations and hide, just another way to be corrupt and make it sound like you're doing something good. According to the filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, former House Rep. Eileen Cowell, Republican White Lake Township, received $15,000 worth of shares in a medical marijuana company in 2015 to pay for consulting work, while her husband, Senate Majority Floor Leader Mike Cowell, another Republican from White Lake, also helped push medical marijuana bills through the legislature. Eileen Cowell confirmed to the Free Press she signed the agreement and received the shares, but she said she quickly recognized the conflict of interest, rescinded the agreement, and returned the shares. Sure, of course, this is the kind of thing that when the light gets shined on it, yeah, everybody's like, oh shit, yeah, okay, let's chill. Don't, whoa. If nobody had shined a light on that, do you think she would have gave those shares back? No. They're just going along trying to do the same old corrupt shit that they always do, hoping that no one's going to notice it. You wonder how many shares of whatever that somebody didn't churn back over, or, this is obviously a conflict of interest, but we're just going to let it go and hope. And if someone catches it later, then we'll just be like, hey, did you see an actual transaction happen? Briefcase of money for a favor or anything? And that's what they always say. The developments have largely been shielded from public view. Michigan has no financial disclosure requirements for public officials, minimal restrictions on lawmakers or legislators' staff working in the Capitol one day and hanging shingles as lobbyists the next, and weak lobbying reporting laws. That's probably the most important one, man. Half these lobbyists, if you called them a lobbyist, they would look at you like you just called them a bad name or something, because they don't consider themselves lobbyists. What they are, of course, it's a dirty word these days. Quote, if you're potentially going to be on the payroll of a company interested in a bill you're pushing that presents huge problems, says David Vance, spokesman of the Common Cause, a Washington, D.C. based organization that advocates for a more accountable government. If someone stands to make a significant financial windfall, they may be inclined to do favors for future employers. The Center for Public Integrity, an investigative news organization that has ranked Michigan 50th in the nation in terms of transparency and accountability, said the issues surrounding the regulation of the medical marijuana industry should make Michigan and other states strive for more transparency. The issues here highlight a broader reality that state legislators are not paragons of disclosure and protections against conflict of interest, said Gordon Whitkin, executive editor at the center. There's a lot of money in marijuana, and legalization continues to continues to proliferate. We're going to see more cash and more questionable behavior. It's sad. Rick Thompson, medical marijuana advocate and board member of the Michigan Charter of National Organization of Marijuana, or Reform of Marijuana Laws, said he was disgusted by the process that culminated in approval of the 5-bill package in September. One of the positives of the Trump administration is his ban on going immediately from government to lobbying, and that's something Michigan should emulate. I don't know if Trump's really good, if that's really panning out in the Trump administration. Maybe this quote's a little old or something. Influence peddling is such a deep-rooted part of our legislative process that it's difficult to remove from the Capitol, Thompson said. In addition to jockeying in Lansing, wealthy businessmen such as developer Ron Boya and entertainment mogul Tom Salaney, owner of the Freedom Hill Amphitheater, are also potentially seeking to get in the medical marijuana business. Both are prolific campaign donors. So again, Michigan voters legalized medical marijuana in 2008, but the bare-bones regulation of the drug created a wild, wild west landscape with patients concerned about safety, quality, and security of supply. No, they were not worried about any of that. They were not worried about safety. They were probably worried about quality a little bit. You always got to worry about that. But the security of the supply was not something that patients sat around and lost sleep over, trust me. What the patients around town wanted was more options, more places to go and get medical marijuana. And that's the only thing that they were concerned about. They were concerned about the prices, which were getting kind of high when there was a lot of dispensaries and you can only find good stuff at certain ones. But overall, these are concerns that are invented by these people that wanted to set up all this other stuff around the industry. Michigan courts ruled that only marijuana sales between registered caregivers and patients were legal, meaning the dispensaries used by many patients shut down frequently and largely required on local officials in some communities turning a blind eye in order to operate, which is sad that you see a need for laws to change, but instead of changing them to favor the people that are doing good and good work in the community, it's what the community wanted, dispensaries. Oh, we're going to do something totally like blindside them and then pull the rug out from under them. And then if they still continue to operate, we'll put them in jail. That's what they're doing right now. I mean, they're doing this, and it's more than just Michigan. They're doing it in Canada, the whole country. They're doing it all over the country, wherever laws are being changed. They don't care about the people that are getting bulldozed over by the laws at all. And in this situation, it's the rich Republican people that just corrupt and just want to crush the little guy. They hate the little guy. They hate anybody making any money off of medical marijuana. They just hate it. That's all I got to say about that. Now, meanwhile, they're sitting there being like overly cautious, like, oh my God, I can't believe we let just everyday people grow like 12 plants. What the fuck's wrong with us? You know, they're gonna obviously sell that weed to the black market and become, you know, carve out a good living for themselves while providing a good service to the people that know him. No, they don't care about that shit. In fact, they hate to see it. They hate to see somebody doing okay. They hate that marijuana can be an uplifting thing for someone's personal economy. They hate that. They want you to. They don't want you to have that. Obviously, they want to control every dime of it, but they want to get in there and do what they do. You know. All right, so Snyder signed the bills into law in September, which require state-issued licenses for large-scale growers, processors, testers, secure transporters, and retailers of medical marijuana, and give communities the authority to allow and zone for medical marijuana dispensaries within their borders. Though welcoming the fact that the laws give new legal protections to those who use medical marijuana, some advocates say the new rules set the stage for high prices and near monopoly control by politically connected investors. There's huge money to be made. There have only been two issues that I've lobbied so hard on, and this is one of them," said Senator Tanya Schutemaker. Shitmaker? I don't know. Republican from Lawton, who opposed the legislation and recalled health care issues as the other hot button topic for lobbyists. The apparent feeding frenzy, observers say, is the result of a rare opportunity to get on the ground floor of a new and lucrative state-licensed industry. Why is it so lucrative? It's state-licensed. Oh, I know, because you know people in the licensing board. A House fiscal agency analysis of the laws says the industry is expected to generate $771 million in annual sales and $21.3 million in state taxes. Today, close to 250,000 Michigan residents hold medical marijuana cards. Many of them are served by the nearly 41,000 licensed caregivers who are each permitted to grow no more than 12 marijuana plants for each up to 5 patients. With the new ballot drives about to launch to legalize marijuana for recreational use in Michigan, proponents expect many of the regulations placed on the medical marijuana industry to carry over to the recreational market, with potential revenues expected to escalate into the billions. Yeah, I've already seen my legalized trying to adopt some of this bullshit language out of Snyder's package of 5 new laws. Like the secure transporter. Why the fuck do we need a secure transporter? Oh, because they said we do? It's ridiculous, man. The only person that's going to pull you over when you got weed in your car is a fucking cop. What do you think's going to happen, man? There's going to be some gang squads that are going to follow somebody out of the marijuana facility and shoot them down for their weed cargo? Because that's absurd. It hasn't happened that I know of, and it's just not something that happens. It's like you're trying to address a problem that doesn't even exist. And that's a lot of the runaway bullshit that when you're trying to put together some shit and give some shit to your corrupt buddies, you always have some wishy-washy kind of stuff like that. Like, oh, man, it seems like it's not even really a thing. Oh, it's because it's not. Anyway. So Lansing is waiting for Snyder to appoint the 5-member board to oversee the licensing. 3 of the appointees are Snyders, with 1 each recommended by the Senate Majority Leader Arlan Meekoff, Republican from West Olive, who has submitted Johnson's name, and House Speaker Tom Leonard, Republican from DeWitt, who has declined to reveal his nominees. Another 17-member advisory panel will help develop the rules and regulations surrounding medical marijuana. From chiefs to lobbyists, much of the grunt work in drafting bills is done by key legislative staffers, and no staffers were more integral to the process than the chiefs of staff at the 2 judiciary committees that worked on the legislation. Brian Pierce, who is a chief of staff to House Judiciary Chairman Representative Clint Kesto, Republican from Commerce Township, and Sandra McCormick, who is Chief of Staff to Senate Judiciary Chairman Senator Rick Jones, Republican from Grand Ledge. Both now have better paying jobs as lobbyists for the medical marijuana industry. Pierce left the legislature in November 2015, less than 2 months after the medical marijuana bills cleared the House of Representatives, and registered as a lobbyist in December with only one client, the Michigan Responsibility Council. That's who they are. And they're supposedly a medical marijuana trade association representing businesses who want to get involved as growers. except for nobody that they got even are growers. They're just people trying to take this shit over. And since they didn't get their ballot initiative going up and running, they're trying to do it this way. And they have a lot more ability to do it this way because they're all a bunch of Republicans. They're former and current members of the actual Michigan Republican Party, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, McCormick, who was chief of staff to Jones, became executive director in January of the Michigan Cannabis Development Association, which is funded by businesses that want to get a medical marijuana license once the state awards them in December. So before the licenses come up to be grabbed up, all these people that used to be in the government now they're lobbyists, and they lobby for their friend who's going to shake their hand later and get everybody licenses that they want, their friends. So this is slow motion how the little people are going to get squashed right out of this new medical marijuana industry. Now, I personally don't give a shit. I'm a caregiver. I have my 5 patients. I do what I do. If they don't come around and fucking try to shut me down, which would be ridiculous because I'm not their competition. If you shut me down, my patients are just going to die or something. They're not going to go to the fucking dispensary and buy your garbage. None of these people really have any experience. So I don't know what their product's even going to be like. Especially Michigan Responsibility or the Responsibility Council. What do you guys know about marijuana? It's like a bunch of former police chiefs and fucking Republican Party, old goons that's been around since the 1950s. Like, are you guys serious, man? You guys are going to start growing in the marijuana and selling us the marijuana. You guys that used to arrest us for marijuana and talk down on us, tell us that we're fucking losers for smoking it and throw us in jail for growing it, possessing it, selling it. Now you guys are going to be the ones that do all that shit, huh? Well, good luck with that. Two staffers said they see nothing wrong with the move to lobbying, and it's typical of what happens in Lansing, especially in an era of term limits when staffers are forced to move when their bosses have to leave office. Man, it's so sickening that all you people got so comfortable before these term limits. Oh, it's just a job that I can go here and keep getting reelected and basically have this job forever. It's so disgusting. I'm glad there's term limits, and just to hear you guys complain about it is just sad. All right. Oh, the staffers have to move across the hall when they get a job at a new guy's thing because their dude got voted out. Like, oh, whoop-de shit, man. And a matter of fact, the staffers should get kicked out of Lansing too, because apparently they were just working on the same garbage that got their person that was actually the representative kicked out. Or, well, he ran into his term limit and he's got to go. All right, well, what did he do while he was there? You can continue that work if it was good work. But if it ain't, if it's just some garbage and some corrupt bullshit like this, I mean, these term limits seem to me like somebody gets in there and they do whatever they can. It seems to me like it's more of a hotbed for corruption because they know they're going to be out anyway. So while they're in there, they can do whatever they want to pave the way for future favors. Corruption is just getting to the point where the people can't take it no more. All right. The government's a simple proposition. All you guys are there for is to do stuff that we all can't do on our own, we don't need your big regulation body around any marijuana. It's just ridiculous. So you get 2 choices. Stay 2 more years as a legislator or move to a job that would have more longevity. I can't count how many policy advisors have left the legislature to a policy area they really like, she said. The staffers' former bosses said they have also no problem losing their employees to businesses they've directly impacted through legislation they've sponsored. Yeah, there's just no problem with that. There is only so much money to be made here. 40,000 is the average, Keisto said. They're going to go where the niche is and work on something they understand. James said McCormick is the 3rd chief of staff that he has lost to lobbying. yeah, these people are all just gross. I think, yeah, I'm not going to go through all that. But anyway, lack of disclosure. Four lobbying firms or associations that are solely tied to the medical marijuana spent $336,277 on trying to influence lawmakers on the issue in 2015 and 2016. Records show. They are the Michigan Responsibility Council, which spent $146,000. The Michigan Cannabis Development Association, which spent $124,514. The National Patients' Rights Association, which sounds good, but they're not even that good, and they spent $37,969. And Prairie Plant Systems. Isn't that the Canadian company that's basically trying to take over all of Canada's medical marijuana growing? I don't know, but they spent $30,000. It's hard to get a true sense of how much lobbying was going on because of the lack of disclosure laws in the state, said Craig Mauger, executive director of the Michigan Campaign Finance Network, noting that money from the marijuana trade associations is probably only a fraction of what is actually spent. All right, then it goes on to talk about, how they spend thousands of dollars on paid drinks and dinners and shit, and who got the most from who and all that shit. Mauger said that groups like the Sheriff's and Prosecutors Association also tried to influence the end product because they want to make sure they still get plenty of business from the marijuana smokers, if you know what I mean. And the public had no idea what was going on with any of these negotiations while they were hammering out these new laws. Public isn't aware of any of it. Meanwhile, the people that are going to make money later on it are quitting their jobs so they can become lobbyists and make more money. I mean, it's just disgusting, man. And meanwhile, the little people are just not even thought of at all. Like people that are current caregivers or whatever, maybe they're good at what they do. Maybe they should be in charge of larger scale operations. Nah, we're not even going to include them at all. Matter of fact, we're probably going to go ahead and bust them later on down the line just to make sure that they're not trying to compete with us. So there was somebody in there trying to fight against the monopoly style takeover. So let's check this out. I just wanted to emphasize up here that these people act like we're stupid. Oh, all this stuff that I did was within the law of campaign finance rules. We didn't do any quid pro quo. Over the past 3 election cycles, I raised maybe $1 million. So the amount that they gave us was just a little drop in the bucket. It didn't affect any decisions I made. They always do this and say that shit. And it's a pissing contest for sure, because remember how I said that all those people that pitched in money? Well, the people that were doing the Patients' Rights people, Patients' Rights Association, they got nothing. They didn't get nothing out of it. So anyway, yeah, you're going to hear that in a second. Despite the infusion of cash, legislators resisted suggestions to limit the industry to the biggest businesses. Quote, there were moves to monopolize all the testing and distribution, moves to monopolize all the growing, said Calton, who sponsored primary bill in each of his 3 sessions in the legislature. Quote, even now you see some big out-of-state operations that want to come in and grow hundreds of thousands of plants. There are fears that big operations in the industry will squeeze out current caregivers and that patients will be left with an unaffordable product. Robin Snyder, who became a medical marijuana patient after suffering a stroke in 2013, is now executive director of the National Patients' Rights Association. She started trying to get a bill passed even before her stroke when a cancer-stricken friend was desperate for a non-smokable form of marijuana that could be put in his feeding tube. 4 years later, after multiple hearings, work group sessions, and fights over final legislation, she just wants to make sure the patient's needs don't get lost in the rush for licenses and the quest for profits. Quote, our concern is that regulations are reasonable enough that licenses aren't impossible to get and at the same time avoid a monopoly in the business, she said. The group didn't get everything it wanted, she said. Schneider would have liked a better opportunity for current caregivers to transition to a new system and a requirement that anyone applying for the first license be a caregiver with at least 2 years of experience. Quote, but we accomplished our goal of mandatory testing and access. Oh my God. Of course, the two things that the right wingers want you to do, because that's going to make them money because they can let their buddies take over some of that. We're not unhappy with the results, she said. We just hope the regulation will allow small businesses and affordable products. It's not allowing small business already. And if you've seen Lansing with their ordinance that they did right after these laws passed, they're cutting out the little guy. They don't want the little guy involved in the medical marijuana industry. All right, period. So, quote, there were people who tried to figure out how to corner the entire industry by leveraging the legislator, he said. But I would rather see 1,000 millionaires than 1 billionaire created from this act. I'd rather see 1,000,000 thousandaires, dude. Like, you guys got your shit figured out all wrong. This isn't this. It's better to be a cottage grassroots industry, because it just is, man. It's just like anything else, like anything that you can grow in the ground. It's better to get it locally because you can find out more about it. You can source it. You know what you're getting. Anyway, I pretty much said everything I wanted to say about this. Now, this talks about the rich, well-connected investors that are coming in on it, and I already mentioned Salini and Boye a little bit. Why should they get stakes? Why should they get play? Because they got money and influence? Yeah, pretty much. And you're going to get that. And I don't mind sharing this industry with people like that. But they do. They want to squeeze us out, and that's bullshit. These people have been involved with all of the lobbying process from beginning to end. And it's ridiculous. These big operators are, for some reason, they want to squeeze the little guy out. And I don't understand that, because there's room for everybody. That's what I would like to get my message out to all of you. I know I'm nobody. I'm just somebody here that bitches about shit on YouTube, but I'm getting a little bit fucking fed up with this shit, where you don't want to share with the rest of the industry that's already been here, the grassroots people that fucking passed the laws in the first place while you were still locking people up and not letting people smoke at the Freedom Hill. Dude, whatever. Then this is just talking about how the new laws are going to create all this new shit. They're anticipating 113 full-time state licensing employees, 34 employees of the state police to do background checks. And on top of that, because they're saying that this new bureaucracy that they're going to have to set up for the medical marijuana industry that they're setting up is going to cost $21 million a year, including $500,000 that you're just going to throw to the Attorney General's office for, quote, legal expenses. Whatever, man. It's just ridiculous what's going on here. And we got to live with it. I don't know. There's really nothing we can do about it. Majorities are super majorities in Michigan, and it's all Republican all the time. And this thing, like I said, it sat in committee for a long time so that everybody had time to get in position to make that money off it. And this is happening in more than just Michigan. This is happening in other states. This is happening in entire countries where the corporate influence of the government is pushing to take the industry over. And this is medical marijuana, which is sad. Now, if all this was happening to recreational marijuana, you wouldn't see me complain a whole lot. Because recreational marijuana, even though I feel like we're the grassroots and we're going to make it happen, I think in Michigan, at least, the recreational marijuana will not come without the allowance of people to grow their own marijuana, like a 12 plants or something. Like, everybody's going to be allowed to grow something. And if not, then that's completely shady, and that does not deserve anybody's attention. But I think it will, and I think if all this was happening where the government was trying to set up this recreational marijuana thing in Michigan and their buddies were allowed to get in on the ground floor instead of anybody that was grassroots or small people in general, that would be a little bit different. All right, man, this is all I got on this. This is a long video, and yeah, Michigan, man, it's freaking crazy out here.